I don't wanna be just someone that's new. I speak my mind so free, so you could hear the truth. Yeah, I know that we all have fear.
Hey, welcome back to the Truth for Youth podcast with Mike and Murphy. Thank you guys for tuning in. We are going to have another good podcast. We wrapped up a series this past week on cults and world religions. I know it was a little long, but I hope you were informed. I hope it helped educate you a little bit on some of the other world religions, our cults out there, so that you have a little bit more knowledge. I actually got to use this podcast series just last night. I was talking with a friend, and we were talking about some other religions and a friend that he has, and he was kind of asking me some questions. I said, oh my gosh, I just did a series on this. Apparently he wasn't listening, right? I got a chance to scold him for a little bit and send him the links to the podcast, so he was able to hop on and listen and get informed, so he was better educated on how to have more conversations about religion with this particular friend. I'm going to talk a little bit more about that story in just a moment, but that is the reason for this particular series, or not series, but this particular topic today. It works well because it's building on the series that we just did, and it's going to help maybe explain a little bit and differentiate, again, Christianity versus maybe other religions. So we're going to talk about good works. We're going to talk about the cause and the effect. Are good works the cause, or are they the effect? Well, it really depends. It depends. So stay tuned to the podcast, and we're going to talk a little bit more about it. But I want to take a moment just to stop for a second and say, guys, first of all, I really, really, really appreciate you guys that are faithful, that tune in, that listen, that are just trying to get information, trying to get a little biblical truth. That's what this podcast is for. And if you are benefiting from this, if you find value, would you please share it with someone that you think would benefit? They don't have to be a student. They don't have to be a teenager. That's who my target audience is, but really this is for anybody and everybody. So let's get going now. All right, so cause and effect. Surely you understand cause and effect, but just in case you don't, we're going to go over a little bit of cause and effect. Right? Cause and effect is something that you studied at some point, probably in school, probably elementary school, where one event triggers another event. Okay, so you get a result. An event or an action happens because of another action or event. So in essence, let's take students in class. All right, you fail a test. You get a big fat F on your exam. Is that the cause or the effect? Well, if you got a big fat F, it's probably going to be the effect, okay? The cause is likely that you did not study, right? You stayed out, hanging out with friends on social media, maybe you completely forgot, and you bombed the test, get a big F. Okay, so the cause was, again, you did not study, whether it be you forgot or just maybe you studied a little bit, you thought it was going to be easy or whatever. The effect, the result is the F, the doing bad on the test. So you have the cause and effect. All right, so that's what that is. Now we get into good works. And while we're going to talk about good works for a couple reasons. All right, again, the conversation that I had with a friend is part of that reason, but also what we talked about in some of these other religions. We talked about, how do you get to heaven? Okay, that's what everybody wants to know. And even these other religions, maybe it's not a heaven, like the heaven of the Bible. Maybe it's paradise. Maybe it's just some kind of exalted state. But everybody's got this destination, essentially, other than, I guess the atheist that just believes that there is no God and we essentially just die and, return to dust. But pretty much all the other religions have some type of afterlife, a destination that they are striving for, that's good, that they want to reach. And so how do you get to that destination? How do we get there? Well, Depending on the religion, you have different things that you're doing. Maybe it's, certain prayers that you have to pray, perhaps multiple times a day. Maybe it's good works. Maybe you have to do a whole list of things or commandments or whatever to get there. But in essence, there's some type of effort or action that needs to take place in order to get to that destination. All right. All the religions that we talked about have that in common. All of them. The only religion that we talked about that does not have this particular action or effort to get you to that destination is Christianity. Christianity is solely based on faith. That's it. All right, it's grace that God has granted us, and through faith in Jesus Christ, you are granted salvation. You are granted eternity in heaven, okay, that destination that we're striving to get to. You do not earn your way to heaven. You do not have this checklist of all these items that you have to get done, like a scavenger hunt, right? Where you have to do all these different tasks, all these different things to check off the list so that you can say, hey, I completed my list. Now I get to go to heaven. And in fact, some religions, it's not necessarily a checklist as much as it is you have to tip the scales in your favor. You know the scales, like where you put something on one side and then you put something on the other, or maybe it's a weighted scale where you have a weight on this and you're trying to figure out the exact weight on this one, so you keep putting items in there. Right? You've seen the scales of justice. Right? Well, that's what a lot of people think, that if they just do more good deeds than bad deeds, that they've tipped the scale in their favor and they will get into heaven. Right? That's common sense thinking to a lot of people, which it's not really common sense because that's not what the Bible teaches. But in people's minds, that's what they think. They think that should happen because, well, I'm a pretty good person. So if I just do enough good deeds and they outweigh the bad deeds, then I'll get into heaven. But that's not what the Bible says. So in essence, what those people are saying is they're earning their salvation. And the Bible makes it real clear that you do not earn it. You don't. Not at all. Let's look at a passage that talks about this. Paul talks about it in Ephesians chapter 2, verses 8 and 9. And as you guys know by now, if you've listened to some podcasts, I like multiple translations. Okay, I just like the way they hit. So here's a couple of them. All right, one is the easy to read. And this is what it says. I mean that you have been saved by grace because you believed. You did not save yourselves. It was a gift from God. You are not saved by the things that you have done. So there is nothing to boast about. Here's the Living Bible. Because of his kindness, you have been saved through trusting Christ. And even trusting is not of yourselves. It too is a gift from God. Salvation is not a reward for the good we have done. So none of us can take any credit for it. Here's the Good News Translation. For it is by God's grace that you have been saved through faith. It is not the result of your own efforts, but God's gift, so that no one can boast about it. So there you have three different translations that all say the same thing, but I just like some of the wording in them a little bit differently. I like the way it talks about, how you're not earning it, maybe because it's your own efforts. It's a gift, right? You're not saved by the things you've done. It's not a result. It's not a reward for the good that you do. All right, it's real clear what Paul's talking about. He says by grace. And what is that grace? Remember, grace is the things that we do not deserve. It is unmerited favor that is granted to us. We don't deserve it. We get extended this grace, which means the opportunity to have salvation Through what? Through Jesus Christ. Remember, Jesus Christ came and lived a perfect life, died on the cross for our sins. We talked about this last week when we talked about Christianity. It's the key point is Christ. So if we have faith in Jesus Christ, therefore we are saved. We don't have to do a bunch of good works, right? It's not that, we're checking off all these things. Whereas other religions will say, maybe it's a combination for some of them. It's, you have to have some faith in whatever God or whatever Savior that they throw out there. But there's also a bunch of good works that you have to do. You have to do all these things. And then at the end, if you've done enough, then you get in. Here's the crazy thing to think about if that's the case. And I know there's probably a bunch of people that are going to listen to this podcast that are not sure where they end up when they die. You don't know because either you're not sure what religion to believe, or perhaps you have hopes in getting to some type of heaven, but you also know that you've done some bad deeds in your life. And you're kind of wondering, have my good deeds, have they outweighed my bad deeds? They're just kind of wondering. And honestly, a lot of these religions, they're wondering. They don't know. And when they die, they're just hoping that they did enough good deeds to get to the destination that they're shooting for. That exaltation or that heaven or that paradise. But they're living a life of uncertainty. Guys, I cannot imagine living life uncertain. I think that's a miserable way to live life. You're constantly striving every day to do enough good. And look, I'm not saying that we're all evil, like murderers, and just want to go out and do extremely bad things. But guys, we're not good people. When it goes down to the bare bones of who we are, human beings, we have sinful tendencies, right? We have selfishness. We have pride. We have, maybe hatred at times. We have things in our life that are constantly sinning against God. And so we're not good humans. So we're constantly trying to strive to do good things, right? Could you imagine trying to constantly outdo the bad? I can't. I would never have peace knowing that I've done enough good to outweigh my bad. And just hoping that the day that I die, that I did enough good that I actually get into heaven or get into paradise. I think that's a miserable way to live. And again, I know people that are listening to this podcast right now are in that boat of wondering, of curious, or the anxiety or the stress level that can bring. You don't have to have that. Here's the good news. You guys do not have to live life like that. It's not that complicated. Because what Jesus says, because what it says in the Bible, is that if we have faith in Jesus Christ, that we will be saved. If you confess with your mouth that Jesus is Lord and you believe in your heart that God has raised him from the dead, you will be saved. Not that you might be saved, not that you will be saved as long as you do a bunch of good works on top of that saved. You're saved. By what? By the grace that God gave you through the faith, through that believing in Jesus Christ is who he says he was. And you give your life to him. It's not the good works. You will never, ever do enough good works to get into heaven. It doesn't work like that. So let's go back to this cause and effect that we were talking about. Now, I said it depends, right? I only said it depends because it depends on what religion. All these other religions, you're getting to heaven, that is the result of all your good works. So your good works become the cause, right? That's what causes you to get to heaven. that end result. But in Christianity, it's right the opposite. It's right the opposite. You are extended salvation. You are extended that heaven entrance because of the faith. And then once you have that faith in Jesus, you know what comes? Good works come after. So good works are the effect. They're not the cause. You've given your life to Jesus. You're doing quote unquote good things, good deeds, right? You're obeying his commands. You're loving your neighbor. You may be helping the poor or helping the widows or, serving others. You're being obedient and loving him and obeying him. And those good works are the result. The cause is your belief in Jesus, is your salvation. That's what essentially causes you to do the good works. So good works, they're good. I'm not dogging them. I hope and pray that all of you are doing good works. I hope that all of you are serving others and being selfless and loving your neighbors and being kind and considerate and obeying Jesus. But that's the result of the salvation that you've been extended, right? So there is the cause and effect. All right, and I'm going to take you back to the story real quick about my friend. So he met this person from another religion, and they started this friendship. And my friend didn't know much about this particular religion, and so he was asking questions, and he was learning about the religion, and continued to want to learn more. Well, he said later, as the relationship, continued on down the path, that he noticed this new friend became increasingly aggressive with pushing my friend to accept their belief system, and not just accept it, but to join, like become a member of this particular religion. And my friend was like, wait a minute, why all of a sudden did this friend become so pushy? Like, I thought it was just kind of a friendship, and I'm sharing my faith with them, but I'm not pushing them. I want to share Jesus with them, but I'm not pressing it on them. Whereas this person was pressing it. And so when I was talking to my friend about it, I said, well, I think I know why. Now, I don't know this individual, and I can't say this with 100% certainty, but this is my opinion. It's because that is what's required of this religion. I know this religion. We've actually talked about it. And part of their salvation is earned through good works, and those good works are recruiting people to their religion. So now this person may genuinely be concerned about my friend and want them to believe, but because of that aggressiveness, I tend to think it's because they're trying to earn their salvation. Again, that's part of their job. Think about when I share Jesus with people. I'm not sharing because I have to. I'm not sharing because I'm trying to check off a list or I'm trying to earn my salvation. I'm doing it because I'm genuinely concerned for other people's souls. I'm genuinely concerned for where they're going to spend eternity. And I want them to spend eternity with me in heaven. I'm not gaining anything. I'm not getting extra rewards. I'm not getting a payday, right? I'm just concerned for them. Whereas these people, they're pushing you into a religion, possibly, I'm not saying for sure, but possibly because they have something to gain. They're gaining credit, if you will, towards that paradise, towards that top tier of heaven, towards being exalted, reaching that high level. Because the more they get into their religion, those are good works. They're earning those credits. So that could very possibly be why my friend felt this. And when I shared that with him, he kind of opened his eyes, and then I shared the podcast with him so he was able to listen and understand more. And was like, oh my gosh, Micah, I did not realize all the stuff that they were saying. They weren't telling me just even the little depth that I went into the podcast. So it just opens your eyes a little bit, right? And so again, the cause and effect for this other person, the good works. It wasn't the result. It wasn't the effect. It was the cause. It's the cause. Good works is the effect. Okay, guys, I want you to remember that. You're never going to earn your way into heaven. That's not how it works. And Jesus says he is the only way. So all these other paths that people are trying to pursue and do and all those good works to get to heaven, it's not going to get you to heaven. Jesus is the only way. And the only way is through faith in him. Guys, appreciate you listening to the podcast. Hope again that you're finding value, that you're benefiting from it. Would love to hear from you. Shoot me an email. My email is in the show notes. And as always, guys, we will catch you in the next episode. Until then, hope you have a great week and be blessed. Go out and do good works, not because you're trying to get salvation, but because it's the result of the salvation that you already have. All right, guys. Love you. Bye-bye.
I don't wanna be just someone that's new. I speak my mind so free, so you could hear the truth.